Yes.
Good evening, everyone. Before we, go all the way live, I just want to remind you to mute yourselves. And I can see like Mr. Bergerdorf, you're not muted. Mr. Grimm, you're not muted. Mr. Mayo isn't muted. Let me see, that's just on this screen that I'm looking at. And, and I'm, okay. And I just want you to remind you of that because everything, wherever you are, we can hear everything that is going on. But not only can we hear it, since this is a public hearing, the public can hear it also. So I just want all of us to be mindful of that. Uh, so I want to say good evening to everyone. And I'm so happy that I see my numbers are going up. Tonight so far, there are 35 participants. Um, Later on, I'll be able to tell you how many members have come on. We also have tonight, we will be working with veterans, crime victims, social services, and children, youth, and family services. And so with that, we will have be entertained tonight by Mr. Ken Secor for veterans, Karen Ziegler for the Director of Crime Victims, Commissioner Michelle McClay for Social Services, and Commissioner Maura Manning, and Beth O'Neill for Children, Youth, and Families. Uh, Again, I am going to take attendance because I want everyone aware of who um, is in attendance as far as the members are concerned. We have a job to do and we want to make sure that we are aware of what is going on. So right now I'm going to.
Did it fall down?
Excuse me, who is that? Is that you, Mr. Beston?
Yes, I'm sorry.
Okay, just mute yourself, please.
Yeah, I'm waiting for you to take attendance and I'll do that.
So now I'm going to start. I'm going to welcome everyone to the Audit and Finance Committee 2021 Agency Budget Review. At department heads, you will be asked a series of questions related to your budget and are expected to answer as completely as you can. And if an answer to our questions cannot be provided at this time, then please indicate when you are able to provide it to the committee. The legislators have been provided with your written responses to our budget information request letter. And we thank you for your cooperation in providing them. However, in order to complete a more thorough examination of your budget, it may be necessary to forward you some additional questions after tonight's meeting. So right now I'm going to begin by taking attendance for the Audit and Finance Committee, and then I will go on to ask which of our legislators are also here. Mr. Peter.
Present, Madam Chairwoman.
Yeah. Mr. Bergdorf.
Present.
Mr. Clay. Mr. Clay is excused for the moment. Mr. Grimm.
Here.
Mr. Ray Joyce is excused, as well as our chair, because of the passing of their mom. Ms. Lakakis?
Here.
Mr. Mayo?
Here.
And Mr. O'Brien?
Present.
Very good. All right, now we will take attendance to see which of our members are on tonight. Mr. Beston?
Here.
Mr. Brewski? Ms. Chapman?
Here.
Mr. Cleary?
Here.
Mr. Commisso? Ms. Cunningham? Mr. Demolowitz? Mr. Drake? Mr. Efakoro? Mr. Ethier? Mr. Feeney?
Here.
Mr. Grimm?
Here.
I'm sorry. I know you're here. Uh, Mr. Coon? Mr. Langdon?
Here.
Ms. Lockhart?
Here.
Mr. Moriello?
Here.
Ms. McLaughlin?
Here.
Ms. McLean Lane? I know she's here. I saw her.
Here, Madam Chairwoman, thank you very much.
Okay, Mr. Miller?
Here.
Mr. Purley? Ms. Plotsky? Mr. Reedy? Mr. Reinhardt? Mr. Ricard?
Present, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Mr. Simpson?
Here.
Mr. Smith? Mr. Tunney?
Here.
Mr. Ward?
Present.
Ms. Whalen?
Here, Madam Chairwoman.
Thank you. Thank you very much. All right, we're gonna move
Chair.
forward right now. Oh, Sam,
Sam Fine is here.
Mr. Fine, I'm so sorry I overlooked you. As the different ones come in, we will make sure that we record.
Barrero is here too.
Pardon me?
Barrero.
Oh, Barrero. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. All right. All right, now we're going to move forward here. And I just asked you to do, my members to be mindful as we begin to ask questions. I know we have two heavy hitting agencies on tonight. I just want you to be mindful that there may be someone who is behind you who will have questions. And I also have questions too. So we're going to begin right now. And I am going to ask Mr. Secor. Where is he? Mr. Secor?
There we
Yes,
go.
Ms. Willingham.
Can we get a little closer?
Oh, everybody's in the same room. Is that it?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, all right. Now, I'm just going to repeat this. We want you to remember that if you'll be asked a series of questions related to your budget and you're expected to answer as completely as you can. If you cannot answer some of our questions and they can't be provided at this time, just indicate when you are able to provide it to the committee. Now, you have the floor and please provide us with a 2 to 3 minute summary of your budget and how it meets your department's needs for 2021.
Ma'am, our budget is a very, very slight increase over last year. Nothing drastic. It'll allow us to continue all the programs that we have, as well as try to get a couple more up and running. I know you gave me 2 minutes, but that is about it in a nutshell. We have a small budget.
All right, I'll start with a couple questions. And you talked about, you said an increase. So why?
Yeah.
Okay, again, I'm expecting everyone else to please mute themselves now. Thank you very much. All right. Why the increase in the special programs from 8,200 to 11,000?
Ma'am, that will allow us to do some other outreach and stuff like that. We've been limited over the last few years. There was probably a period of about 4 years where our budget didn't increase at all. So I've made a steady increase in our budget over the last 3 years. This should be the last increase that we asked for. This will put us in line with what we need to move forward.
All right. And could you tell me on why the increase in the flags?
Ma'am, in Albany County, we have a joint veterans committee, which is made up of veterans from various veteran organizations within the county. And every Veterans Day and Memorial Day, they're the ones that host the parades and stuff like that. But also on Memorial Day, they are in charge of placing flags at all the cemeteries within Albany County. And part of this money is actually going for those flags.
Oh, that's wonderful. All right, are there any questions from our members? If not, I just want to bid you a good evening, Mr. Secor, and thank you for coming in. And also stay safe.
Thank you, ma'am.
All right. I also would like to acknowledge that Mr. Demolowitz is also present. We'll now go to crime victims. And for any of you that may have your budget books in front of you, that is on page 106 through 111. Again, we're ready with Ms. Ziegler.
Thank you so much. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, very well.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate this. Our budget is very similar to last year's. There's a slight increase in the budget, but there's a decrease in the amount of county share. We have had an increase in our grant funding, so you've seen that reflected in the budget. The big change is that we are looking to leave the administrative aid line vacant and actually move that funding into a deputy director line. I would like to begin succession planning. I do believe that a couple of years, I have a lot to teach whoever we would like to take over after me. We have 10 grants. We have 17 staff. We are doing so much. We have all these amazing projects going on. So I would like to have the opportunity to train someone so that the transition will be seamless.
I'm sorry. All right, I just have a few questions for you. And okay, your fees for services up $25,000?
That is COVID funding that we received through the Department of Health. We have 2 Department of Health grants. We have our Enough is Enough grant, and we have a Region 4 CDC grant, which is very prevention based. So we have gotten increased grant funding to do very specific social marketing and media outreach. So that difference of $25,000 is completely grant funded by Department of Health.
Is the Federal Victims of Crime Act grant funding included in the 2021 budget line?
Yes.
Okay, all right. The one thing I would like you to discuss is whether or not what has been your increase in services as far as uptick in people you're serving.
Could you repeat the last thing you said, please?
The people that you've been serving. There's been a lot that has gone on in the city of Albany, so I want to know how you've been affected by that.
It's very interesting. The courts actually there's been a dip in our court, the criminal justice advocacy. The courts have been remote up till recently. So there's been actually a decrease in some of our court advocacy programs. We're seeing an increase in our clinical programs. So let me separate those two out and let me speak to the clinical piece first. So with COVID, when we went remote, we did a lot of research and we did some trial and error to do remote clinical work. So people can do whether by phone call or through virtual meetings. We have a number of different platforms that we're paying for through grant money. So we've actually seen an uptick in our clients because they really like the remote piece. Sometimes it's challenging for people to come down and find parking on State Street. So especially for our college students, this has been actually wonderful that they've been able to utilize our services even more so with the Zoom platforms and Doxy and Theralink and the different programs that we're using. We're actually doing a lot of work with the homicide and the shooting victims. There have been 116 shootings, 16 victims. We've started to have a regular group, including ourselves, the DA's office, Urban Grief, Lisa Good, the Reverend Lisa Good, if you're familiar with her work, she's amazing. And the SNUG program, looking to outreach communities because we recognize that with every shooting, our communities are being traumatized, our communities are being affected, even if they're not shot, just hearing gunshots, having bullets sprayed. We've had several people come in that weren't the primary target, but have had bullets found in their living rooms, in their cars. So this is absolutely a huge issue that we're very concerned about in the city of Albany, and we are working collaboratively to try to address it.
So can you explain to me the type of services that, how many people you have working for you and the type of services they provide, please?
Absolutely. Right now there's 16 of us in total, and we have 5 different programs. So if you would indulge me, I'll just go through each of the programs. We have our therapy program. So we have a clinical supervisor and 3 clinicians, one of which is vacant. We're hoping to fill, or to offer by the end of the month. We have 2 child clinicians and then a general clinician, although all of the clinicians can see people from children through adulthood. But they're special. The 2 child clinicians have that specialty because it is a specialty. Not everyone can work with children. So they provide therapy. So we work with little ones, I would say about 3 on up. In fact, we just got some new puppets and new toys because we find play therapy is actually most effective for little ones. So we're serving everyone who wants therapy. It's free. We have no waiting list. If you call me tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock and say you have an emergency, we will make contact with that person by the end of the day. Because we think it is so important at the moment of crisis, at the moment of outreach, that we provide a service so that we can help somebody find safety. We have our core advocacy program. We are involved in the 14 local courts in Albany County. So we don't do county court, that's a felony level, but the 14 local courts and family court, we have advocates so that we outreach every single crime victim in Albany County. So if you file a police report, we will make every attempt to reach out to you. We'll attempt to reach you by phone. If we can't reach you by phone, we'll send you a letter, including in that are your victim rights and further information. We want to know how we can best serve you, what you need from the court system to the best of our ability, because we're not the judge, we're not the final arbiter, but we will find out what happened. If you have a specific recommendation, something that you'd like to see happen, for example, if you know the defendant, you might suggest maybe they need mental health treatment, maybe they need substance abuse treatment. If you need restitution because some property was taken, stolen, or broken. If you need an order of protection. So we find out this information and we convey it to the DA's office, who share it with the judge, and then therefore is determined in the court system. We have our hotline. We have a 24-hour crisis hotline, so we take calls. Again, it is staffed every day, holidays, weekends, evening, 24 hours a day. We are staffing that. We have a very vibrant volunteer program, so that we're looking actually with a lot of college students, both undergraduate and graduate students, as well as community members who staff our hotline. We take calls from sexual assault victims, domestic violence victims. We have elder abuse victims that are calling us, and child abuse. Those are the 4 categories of people right now that we are doing accompaniments. With COVID, Trinity, the hospitals, which for us is St. Peter's and Albany Memorial, have closed to advocates outside of Trinity employees. Samaritan, that's the program is out of Samaritan. So we've been serving Albany Medical Center. They are on track to have 400 victims this year. They've had over 300 so far. The biggest increase is in children, little ones up to 17. There's been a dramatic increase in that. We are actually looking to go into talks with them to see if we could be serving more people, not just the child abuse, the sexual abuse, but also the domestic violence, stabbing victims, shooting victims, so that if a person goes in and accepts our services, because we don't force ourselves on anyone, but if they're interested in having an advocate, we are looking to expand our current services to go into any crime victim who presents at Albany Med and help them with just information. If they're interested in filling out the New York State Office of Victim Services application, explaining their rights, just kind of making that connection, offering all kinds of services, doing an intake. So we're looking to expand that process, that whole program with Albany Med. We have a case management program. Some folks, not everybody, but some folks who are doing their very best prior to a crime happening to them, the crime might be just enough to take them over the edge. Maybe it's just enough that they can't catch their breath. They've lost their housing, they've lost their job. It's just enough. So our case managers can work very intensely and for much longer term with those folks to help them stabilize and regain as much of what they've lost as possible. Make sure they have, to the best of our ability, safe housing, and work with an employer, and work with, if there's a college involved, those types of things. So really working to try to help stabilize that person and help them move on. We have a campus program. We are involved with all the campuses in Albany County. So we have our campus sexual assault services coordinator, and she's very, very actively involved with the campuses have an OVW grant, and she's one of the co-chairs and assists with the St. Rose management of that project. So we really look to work with our campuses. My big thing is that one of my biggest pushes is that I don't want to wait till already in college to start talking about issues like consent and issues around respect of your partner and other things. So I really like to work on high schools and even middle schools and elementary schools. So our community mobilization and prevention education program, our last program, we work with anybody, everybody. So day camps, all the schools, all the colleges, businesses. We'll do sexual assault, sexual harassment training. We will work with anybody and everybody. Honestly, we've done work with summer camps through the health department. We've done work with City of Albany. We've done work with pretty much everybody. And we're looking to actually have a new program. And I don't know, I'm going to offer it to any member of the legislature who would be interested. We'll do it remotely, but we're really looking like our Be the Difference campaign, how to be an engaged bystander, how to recognize something and know what to do, and what you feel safe doing. So we're really looking to change the community.
Okay, Ms. Ziegler,
Yes.
I appreciate, all the information that you have given us. And so we want to thank you for your service. And right now, we're going to move on. And so I want to bid you good evening. And I say stay safe.
Thank you. You as well. Be healthy.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Okay, now we are going to move on to, let's see, social services. And Ms. McQuaid, okay, I just want to remind you that you'll be asked a series of questions related to your budget and are expected to answer as completely as you can. And if an answer to our questions cannot be provided at this time, then please just indicate when you are able to provide it to the committee. Legislators have been provided with your written responses to our budget information requests, and we thank you for your cooperation in providing them. However, in order to complete a more thorough examination of your budget, it may be necessary to forward you some additional questions after tonight's hearing. So I ask right now that please provide us with a summary of your budget and how it meets your department's needs for 2021.
Thank you. Good evening, Madam Chair and members of the committee and the legislature. I have with me tonight Joe Viscuso, who's the Director of Accounts at DSS, Walter Fischlinger, who is a program analyst in the accounting division at DSS. Aaron Stakowitz is the Executive Deputy Commissioner, and Val Sachs is the Deputy Commissioner. We're all here to try to answer your questions. DSS is offering a budget for 2021 of $136.1 million, which includes a county share increase of $917,000 from 2020, or up 1.2%. The increase is due to the Medicaid charge of $70 million with a county share of $66.1 million, which is a county share increase of $2.9 million over 2020. This is a county charge paid weekly, required by New York State, and is non-negotiable. The remaining budget of $65.4 million provides for our mandated programs and services, including payments, for childcare, TANF, Safety Net Emergency Assistance, ISIP, homeless services, and other required contracts and payments to clients and providers, as well as our staffing. We proposed 307 positions, holding 18 positions unfunded for 2021 due to the early separation program. Albany County DSS remained open every day throughout the epidemic. And I am proud of our staff for this and want to thank everyone at DSS for their commitment and diligent efforts through what has been a challenging time. And I thank the County Executive's Office for supporting us in remaining open as safely as possible. We have been efficient and continue to get needed benefits out to county residents. We were helped in our efforts by New York State, which reduced the requirement for in-person interviews, in-person fair hearings, and home visits, and allowed us to conduct these interviews and proceedings by phone. The eviction and utility moratorium and the closure of family court for child support petitions also reduced contacts from the community. However, once all of these waivers are lifted, we expect a significant increase in people coming through our doors and demand for our services. During economic distress, DSS is the safety net for many experiencing financial hardship. This is reflected in a large increase in our SNAP and HEAP applications during this past time period, and what we expect will be an increase in temporary assistance applications, eviction and homeless related needs, child support petitions, adult protective services, and other support, which will continue into 2021 and beyond. And we are here to answer any of your questions.
Okay, thank you very much. I'll start out with some questions. I'll start out with this. Your daycare expenses has decreased by $1 million, but your revenues for this account remains unchanged from year to year. How did you accomplish that?
Maintenance of that.
So we're required to pay a maintenance of effort. New York State requires us to participate in the daycare program. We have been trending down, believe it or not, in the utilization of our child care program. Do you want to add anything more to that?
The maintenance of effort remains the same year to year. So that's the county share is just that maintenance of effort.
We're required to pay that county share, and it doesn't change no matter what the utilization is.
Also, let's see, can you explain the $537,000 increase into the tobacco settlement proceeds?
That's based on 2020 actual data.
Okay. Now, on the CMU, it is listed as 100% local share. Is that because there are no available state or federal dollars for these services?
No, a portion of that contract is funded by TANF. The portion that's not funded by TANF is the safety net portion.
Okay, all right, thank you. Your family assistance caseloads and expenditure trends are trending downward, according to the information you provided. Now, is this because of need or demand is decreasing, or is this because of the limitation on the timeliness with which you can process cases?
It's related to the demand, and the economy was very good in 2019, so we did have less demand for the family assistance services. We cannot project that will continue into 2021, though.
So you said that this was 2019?
No. What we gave you was a trend. So if you look at the last, we gave you from July 19 to July 20, the last year. So it includes part of 2019 into 2020. Our applications have been down since the epidemic started.
They've been down since the epidemic started?
In family assistance, yes.
Well, what would you attribute that to? if people, are losing jobs and so forth, and the services, request for services is going down?
We can't explain it exactly, except potentially the unemployment insurance benefits. The eviction moratorium has kept people stable, and the SNAP benefits, people have been there. The SNAP program has received an increase in applications and an increase in expenditures. So I don't know. I don't really know, except that people have been stable in the family area.
Well, now, would you say your services are able to answer, or you have enough people out there that are able to provide and keep up with the processing of claims? You're just saying that they're not coming in? The claims aren't coming in?
Any claim, we process every application we receive. We are required by law to process applications according to a certain timeline. And if we receive an application, we must process it.
So let me ask you this then. Do you feel that there's more cases being rejected?
No, applications are down. It's applications. And the state actually opened up an online application portal. They've had that for SNAP for years, but they opened up an online application portal for temporary assistance, and we've seen a slight uptick in applications through that, but not, dramatic.
Okay. All right. You have a total of 47 eliminated or held positions for 2021. Can you comment on how this will affect services?
Well, they are not held. We have 18 held positions for the early buyout program. We have vacancies. We have almost 50 vacancies right now, but we are working with HR to get those filled and to move those along, looking at lists and trying to bring in staff as much as we possibly can.
So you have 18 vacancies?
18 positions that are held for 2021 as unfilled due to the early buyout program. The rest of them are just vacancies that we currently have and are moving to fill and need to fill. We will be filling those.
Keeping in this vein of staffing patterns, can you talk about the percentage of employees that are working from home as a result of the pandemic?
We do not have people working from home right now.
Okay.
We are working towards, we just got 40 laptops, so we are working towards getting those systems set up so that through the winter, we're going to be able to have some of our employees working from home.
Okay. So your computer equipment went down to $99.18 from $204,000. But you say you're getting new equipment for people to work from home.
We have the 40 laptops in hand. So that was in 2020, we purchased those. The significant decrease in that line is related to, we had a SNAP grant. We had a SNAP bonus grant that we received previously. So that was just for the 2020 year, and we purchased the kiosk. Yeah. We purchased the kiosks with those funds and starting up those kiosks. So that was an unusual expenditure.
Right. So in the fees for services line, domestic violence non-TA payments to shelters is down 25% or $250,000. Can you explain why is that?
That was when we thought that we were going to be seeing.
Speak up. Can't hear you.
Yep. Okay. It's the New York State switched last year the reimbursement for how they were going to reimburse domestic violence shelters. So we projected last year a cost that it didn't. We over projected. So we're now projecting more accurately what that cost will likely be to the county. We thought there was going to be zero to very little reimbursement for part of that program, but we got in more reimbursement than we expected.
Okay. I might have missed this, but are all the dollar budget lines related to the buyout?
Yes.
The $1 budget lines are buyout.
Okay. So has the Solutions to End Homelessness program been defunded?
For us, it has been. It's out in the community though. Other providers have it.
Oh, okay. All right. All right. And so, all right. Can you just go over again and tell me what's the current impact of SNAP on the county budget?
SNAP costs the county, the benefits themselves of SNAP is 100% federal benefits. So any benefits that SNAP benefits that a recipient receives cost the county zero. The staffing charges for SNAP, we receive 50% reimbursement for the staffing.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Lakakis?
I'm okay, Wanda, thanks.
All right. Mr. Bergdorf? Mr. Bergdorf, you're on mute. Mr. Bergdorf, you're on mute. Mr. Bergdorf, can you hear me? Maybe I need to.
Unmute. Okay, I'm
Oh, there you go.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Reading your narrative in the October 15th document, it almost places a bleak picture on the staffing at social services between the 50 vacancies and the 18 positions which were allowed to be bought out. You're operating at 20%, 22% personal vacancy rate. I guess one of my core questions is, you say you have a hard time hiring caseworkers. Are there any options for you for temporary or provisional staff or borrowing staff from other county departments to help make up the shortfall in the short term? Because I see that core program applications for programs such as SNAP, temporary assistance, Medicare, and HEAP over the last 2 months have been rising. Will you be able to sustain that through the end of 2020 and into 2021?
Well, during the epidemic, it's been challenging. However, we have brought people in from other divisions to help with the SNAP application. So we have moved people where the highest need is. So as we said, the family assistance cases were slightly down. Well, we had staff help us in the SNAP area who were from the temporary assistance area, for instance. Yeah, we're moving, we must move forward to fill the positions, and we're looking to do that, including some provisional appointments. Civil service exams have been slow this year, as you know. So there weren't a lot of lists for our entry level folks. So we are working towards filling positions, and we hope, we can, we'll be able to function when we're able to get closer to a fuller staffing pattern. We always have a vacancy rate. There is turnover here. There's retirements. It happens on a regular basis here. So we're kind of used to the ups and downs of staffing here.
As a follow-up to that, ISIP expenditures on your fee for services are down $300,000 between 2020 and 21. Is that based upon experience? You didn't expend that money in the past, or is that just a budgetary determination in order to cut expenses?
That is a grant we received from the Department for Aging. So that was the amount that they're giving us for 2021. And we think that we will be able to meet the need with that amount.
Okay. COVID risk in homeless shelters, cold blue facilities, and other congregate settings are a great potential. Do you and your vendors have appropriate PPE supplies or strategies for contamination and options for funding should New York State not fund Code Blue?
We are working on that every day. The shelters are well aware of what the needs are related to COVID and the protections they need to put in place. New York State actually just came out with some additional regulations for homeless shelters, including barriers and making sure people are sleeping head to toe as opposed to head to head, and cleaning requirements, HVAC requirements, all of that. So they're paying attention to what the needs are in the shelters. We've heard from our providers that they're moving ahead with their temporary Code Blue shelters, no matter what the state does. So that's really good news to us, and that they're going to try to find the money somewhere if the state doesn't come through. And there is HUD money that is coming through the county and through the city. We'll call it ESG, Emergency Solutions Grant money. That some of that is going to shelters and can go to shelters. So we will be making sure shelters take advantage of that if they can.
Okay. We've entered into many contracts with providers that are based on federal and state funding and a portion of county funding levels. If funding does not materialize from other sources, what are our plans to balance the needs with available funding?
I'm not sure what the question exactly is.
Okay, I'll give you for instance, and I'm not going to specify any program. If there's a program that's 50% federal, 30% state, and or 40% state and 10% county, and the state withholds 20%, how are we going to handle that? And I was also curious as to, I know you've only had $95,000 withheld so far from New York State. If that expands for the balance of 2020, do you have any idea what the potential shortfall would be?
We'll in 1 second, I can get you potentially that number. Basically, if the 20% holds and we don't get reimbursed for that, it is a county share. If we've already paid, for instance, our contracts that we've already paid, and if the state does not reimburse us the full amount that we're due, we've paid it. The county has paid it.
So, you know, because I've asked this question a number of times as we've been authorizing these contracts, and I've always been told that there were provisions in our contracts, non-appropriation clauses, in which if we did not get the other funding streams, we would not be liable for it. Now you're telling me that with all these contracts, we're laying out the money first, and now we're seeking reimbursement. And if we don't get reimbursement, in essence, we are paying the full amount. So I hope the county attorney's office is listening, because we were given other I wouldn't say assurances, but other interpretations.
Mr. Burt, if I could jump in here. So I can kind of explain this. So what was said at meetings, so that language about being, this is Mike McLaughlin, by the way, sorry.
Thanks, Mike.
What was said is that we have that language in contracts. That's 100% true. The problem is, since then, the state has, they've changed the way that they're doing this. So by reimbursing claims, they've they've made that provision null and void. So the only way for us to insulate ourselves, if we're going to say, okay, we don't have faith that the reimbursement is going to come through, is to reduce the amount of services we provide. But even then, no matter what level of service we provide, we're still going to be subject to the 20% withhold. So that language is contained in all contracts. And when there's an instance of something being cut from an appropriation perspective by 20%, we would have the option of ending the contract or something of that nature. But for these services that are provided on a claims basis, we're basically being left holding the bag and having the faith that the withhold will be paid at a later date. Does that make sense?
Well, it makes sense, but it's not particularly consistent with what we've been told in the past. So I guess everything is changing in 2020, but it should give us cause. I used to take great confidence when I saw a program that was federally and state funded, and I guess now not so much anymore.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I guess to a certain degree, I'll apologize because I was the one delivering that message, and that is the message that I meant to deliver. So if others were under that impression, I apologize.
Thank you, Mr. McLaughlin. Do you have any other questions, Mr. Bergdorf?
Just one more, and if they've withheld $95,000 so far for 2020, if that can, on a small number of claims, if that continues and expands to the balance of your reimbursable claims, do we know what our shortfall will be from the state?
On an,
Or can you get us that number?
Yeah, on an annualized basis, if it were the entire year, 20% of our state funding would be $2.1 million.
Is that for 20 or 21?
21. It didn't really start until the year, it's not for the whole entire year of 2020 is what we've been told. So we don't know what the impact exactly will be for 2020 yet.
So that's a potential liability that goes from the revenue column to the expenditure column based on Mike's most recent explanation, if it were to happen.
Potentially, although now that we are aware that this is happening, I mean, we have talked internally that when we're paying our contracts, we will potentially withhold 20% until we receive reimbursement from the state. Now that we know it, I mean, this happened in the middle of the year after contracts have already been paid. This was a surprise. So we can prepare a little bit better for some of the reimbursement for next year, if it continues.
Okay, thank you very much, Commissioner. I appreciate your input.
Thank you, Mr. Bergdorf. Mr. Fine.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have a few questions. Mr. Bergdorf touched on some of them, but still have some questions. In regards to the withholding, Commissioner McClavey, in regards to the withholding of the 20% from the state that Mr. Bergdorf was just talking about, I mean, my concern is I want to make sure, one, that regardless of what happens, that our services will continue to be provided at the same level. So I want to check with you if that is the case. And then if we do end up losing that $2.1 million in 2021, if that ends up being withheld from the state, do we have a backup plan? Is there another source of funding that we're planning on tapping into, or would that come from our reserves?
I think that is a bigger discussion with the county exec's office and management and budget. And this is all relatively new, so we're just starting these conversations.
So is the plan to continue to offer those services and we would make up that gap, or is that still in discussion?
We are mandated to provide our services. If someone gives us an application, we must process it. We must authorize the benefits. So we must continue providing services, and how it's done is that's a bigger conversation potentially, but we will continue to provide those services. As people walk in our doors, we must serve them.
Okay, well, I'm happy to hear that. Is there, so I guess that's a further conversation we have to have about where that money is going to come from. Does Mike McLaughlin or anyone from Department of Management and Budget, do you have anything to add to that?
I'll just second what the commissioner said. We have no intention to start cutting programs at this point.
Yeah, I mean, most, if not all, of the programs that we've been notified about a 20% withhold are mandated programs. So we would have to, we don't really have a choice. You know, from a monetary perspective, it's a much larger conversation, but we still have to continue to provide the service.
And just so it's clear, the reason we keep using the term withhold and not cut, if anybody's not aware of the difference, excuse me, the state budget director has assured us that when the state has those funds, we will be made whole.
Thank you, Mr. Riley and Mr. McLaughlin. Mr. Fine?
Thank you for providing that distinction. And I'm happy to hear that we cannot cut services, because that was a worry I had, is that, you know, that might be something that's on the table. And I know that people really need them right now more than ever. So very happy to hear that. Another question is in regards to, you know, there's, of course, we have the eviction moratorium right now. You know, you mentioned that, you know, that might be, you know, one of the causes of some of the temporary assistance funding or benefits, putting out people applying for less of them. You know, one thing I'm wondering, you provided some information to me about the about some funding that we got from the federal government that went, I believe, to the city of Albany and to the CARES organization. This was through the CARES Act, that was to provide people facing eviction with emergency funding to prevent eviction. Do you feel that, you know, when this moratorium ends, we're facing a potential eviction crisis? And do you feel that we have the necessary funds to provide to people to prevent that crisis, which, you know, if happens right now? I think the eviction moratorium ends at the beginning of 2021. So that would be in the middle of winter, where it'd be an especially concerning time.
I can't imagine the governor ending the eviction moratorium on January 1st, but we don't know. There's the HUD funding that is fairly significant that's coming through, and there's going to be more HUD funding that is coming down for eviction prevention. But it might be, we're expecting that there will be quite a bit of need and quite a bit of chaos when the eviction moratorium is lifted. But we are confident with our providers in the community who have these resources that we will work to, it may not be that we pay back rent, because if it's going to be a year of back rent, nobody has that kind of money. So what we're going to end up having to do is get people moved into new places. And this funding provides, the ESG funding provides for payment for several months of rent going forward. So it might be a mix of some payments of back rent and some payments of rent going forward in new places. We do expect to see some homelessness increase during this. I don't see any way it's not going to happen. And but we are preparing with our homeless providers to deal with that.
Okay, thank you. And another question is just, Mr. Bergdorf touched on this, but I know there's a 22% vacancy rate, which, you know, you acknowledge prevents a risk to processing benefits in a timely manner. And could you just provide a little bit more information on how you plan to address this issue?
We're working every day with HR to look at lists, get interviews done, make recommendations to get people on board. And we will continue that into 2021. And, we'll plug away at it. As I said to Mr. Bergdorf, we have vacancies at the Department of Social Services. There's a lot of movement here, people leaving, getting promoted, that kind of thing, going to other county departments. So we're used to this. This is a little bit more than usual, but we're going to work towards it, and so we expect to be closer to full into 2021.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you very much. Mr. Grimm.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and welcome social services folks. And by the way, thank you for your work. It's a very difficult job, and I can imagine how much more difficult it is with COVID.
Thank you.
One of the questions I have, and this won't surprise anyone, I talk a lot about clear, practical outcomes for everything that we spend our money on. Now, that's easy in Public Works. They spend $300,000 to fix a bridge. The bridge is fixed. Not so easy to clarify results in terms of social services. But when I see your metrics, what I see a lot of is how many people you service, which is great, but it doesn't really tell us how much progress we're making. And one of the things we talk a lot about is, and in fact, is in your mission statement, moving people to self-sufficiency. So is there any way to develop numbers on how many people were dependent and now they're independent, which is really our ultimate goal? Is there any way you can come up with some metrics on that so we know just how much progress we're making?
We can do, we have some metrics on that. We're not, we serve the people that come to us. So the state probably holds more of that information than we do. We don't have the staffing to track people that, left welfare and what happened to them, to follow up and to see where they are 5 years from now. But we can tell you the length of time people are on temporary assistance, the length of time people are in homeless shelters. It's really more of a length of time enrolled in the program is more of our metrics of success. And we're here to help people when they have a hard time. And believe it or not, that even though, sometimes the reputation is people stay on welfare for a long time, most people come and go. They do use the services for a shorter period of time. We do have metrics, for instance, for our adult protective programming. We have a whole adult services unit. We have home care services, and can tell you some information on that depending on what you're looking for.
Well, I just think that, how well we're doing is really an important question, and what kind of progress we're making, because it's a difficult field. But if you don't count it, then it doesn't count. So I think it's very important we start really thinking about counting how successful we are. That's what motivates further improvement. So that's something I think in social services is particularly an acute issue. On Medicaid, we have one line item in the county budget that's $71 million, Medicaid, and it went up from 67 million. What's the biggest reason for that increase this year in the 2021?
It's the unknown. We know what the first 13 weeks are going to be because that's part of the current New York State budget. We don't know what it's going to be for the 39 weeks after that. So we projected what we think would be a reasonable increase, what with the governor being a reasonable man.
Okay, yeah, I just want to, I'll close with this. I don't think the legislature, we've been given a clear answer yet about what will happen to these services if we don't get state money. You say, yes, they're mandated, we have to provide it, but what if the state doesn't give us their money? Where does that money come from? And I think that's one of the most critical issues yet to be determined in this budget process. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much, Mr. Grimm. Carolyn McLaughlin.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Commissioner, for your time. I just really seem to have a real concern as far as this department budget. I look at your summary of your changes. You got daycare decreasing. Your SNAP requests have gone up. you talked about homelessness, and then most recently here, the Medicaid line was just discussed. In light of what we're hearing about the ensuing, I'll call it pandemic flu season / flu season, I have real concerns about how some of these adversely affected communities are going to fare going forward. And I guess I'm really concerned as, does your budget take into consideration that we may be headed down a really dark path for 2021? I'm not sure, that's not what I'm reading in the numbers that I see. So if you could just help me understand that a little better, because even just the daycare issue, you said it's driven by caseload decreases and I guess requests. I don't know whether that's because kids are home from school, parents aren't working, and they're taking care of schooling and daycare. But I just want to know, have you taken into consideration if we take a negative turn as it relates to the pandemic?
We are fully expecting it to be quite a difficult winter for our clients. We're trying to accurately project and be fiscally responsible at the same time. And we think that what we presented is a fair and fairly good projection of what our needs and our use is going to be for 2021. Just to give you an example for daycare, people that are eligible for our daycare program must be either working or enrolled full-time, I think full-time, in school. So it limits the people that are going to access that program. And we have been really hitting the streets and advertising, trying to get more people to enroll in our daycare program. So we don't know what's the missing link and whether there's more people out there that could enroll. But the trend has been, enrollment has been down in that program. So that's what we're trying to present, what we think reasonably is going to be the need for the next year. And then if the need goes up, if people are working and more people are in need of daycare, we'll look at that for 2022.
Can you remind me what you said about the homelessness, where you anticipate that you will have some funding to help people deal with evictions and moving in, and also paying back rent? Does your budget also anticipate the fact that those numbers will go up? Because some of these people that who have felt comfortable, as you said, something alluded to earlier, because they had the stimulus and they had the unemployment benefits, those things are not on the horizon just yet. Have you taken the fact that that money has not been appropriated yet to the states?
The emergency solutions grants I was talking about earlier is HUD funding that came to OTDA through the city of Albany and through the county. And that is related to homelessness. So it's going to be for eviction prevention and then rehousing in new housing, helping people pay for security deposits and several months of rent. So, and as I said, there's more of that HUD funding that is already been allocated that's supposed to come to the state. So we expect additional funding in that area.
Okay.
But it's not our funding, it's HUD funding. It's federal funding, 100% coming to OTDA through down to the localities.
Yes, and I appreciate that, I understand that, but is any of that in question going forward?
We don't hear anything from the advocates or from OTDA that is not coming down.
Okay. finally, the Medicaid funding. That someone, the last couple of statements that were made, I believe it was by Mr. Fine, but a question that he asked, do you anticipate that, does your budget anticipate any increases in requests for Medicaid?
We service a subset of people who apply for Medicaid. We service people who are applying for long-term care. So elderly, disabled, people in nursing homes, people going for home care, for people who are receiving our temporary assistance.
SSI population.
The SSI population. So we serve a subset of folks. The state, New York State Health.
Yeah, New York State of Health. Yeah.
New York State of Health takes a huge portion. Say there's about 65,000 people enrolled in Medicaid in Albany County. New York State manages about 40,000 of those people. So those are your working folks, the folks enrolled in the ACA component, people with debt, huge medical bills. Those people are going to the exchange. We have been serving the elderly, disabled, the spend downs. That's who we service, the harder population, frankly. I mentioned it in my report that New York State is starting a look back period for home care. There was, as they do have for nursing homes, a 5-year look back for eligibility. They're starting one for home care. So we are used to the folks that come to us for Medicaid applications.
Okay. I just I don't know, I'm just proceeding with caution because I just don't see things getting better. And for the community that I serve, I would just like to remain, I want to be optimistic, but I just want to remain, I don't know if I want to use the word skeptical, but I just hope for the best. Well,
yes.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Ms. McLean-Lane?
Thank you, Madam Chair, for recognizing me. I'm going to make it very quick. Our colleague, Mr. Grimm, was interested in numbers, and prior to the 90s, we used to live 1.25 million people out of poverty with social services assistance. After the PRORA, that was done by the Clinton administration, which was welfare to work, we only now lift 625,000 people, even with our population increase, out of poverty. I can say this. New York State offers a wealth of services. And I have to say that the services that are provided by our social services department are truly something that helps people out of poverty. And I just want to say thank you, Commissioner McClave. I've known you since you were the head of the AIDS Council. I know the great job that you do. And thank you very much for all the work you put into being here tonight and all the questions you've answered. Thank you very much. I really use my time, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, Ms. McLean-Lane. Ms. Lockhart?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And Commissioner, I commend you and your staff for the work you're doing. Very familiar with your agency, working alongside of it many years when I was in the police work.
Oh, wow.
But I would like to follow up on Mr. Grimm's, because I think one of the success of the program is that we don't need it anymore, especially in these areas. Wouldn't it be wonderful if nobody was homeless and nobody was hungry? And our former comptroller used to come to us every year at the State of the Fisc. And he used to tell us he screamed about poverty and raising people out of poverty and the challenges before us. And said that we were on 4th and 5th generations of people on public assistance, which is not good. And I know that we all would agree with that. We don't want to see anybody have to need those services. My question to you, is there a way that we track how many of our clients through social services are those generational families? That would be one thing, okay? How many generations of family are we servicing, the same families? And what are we really doing? I'm not talking about the new people coming into the system, but the generational families. What are we really doing to break that cycle? Can you speak to that, Commissioner?
Well, our job is to keep people fed, housed, have access to healthcare, have access to opportunity. And I think it's going to take a lot more partnerships and entities than Albany County Department of Social Services to end poverty. We have a role. Our role is mandated by New York State, and that is to provide those cash assistance programs so that people are able to feed themselves and their families and have a place to live. Taking it, and we're very busy doing that. And so I think it will take a bigger plan to end generational poverty. We're here to keep the wolves at bay, I guess, for our clients, and to try to help some of them who part of our welfare program, our temporary assistance program, is we work with people to get employment. We look at what's preventing them from getting employed. We look at substance abuse problems, potentially mental health problems, lack of education, lack of a certificate for being a CNA, whatever it is. We try to work with people as best we can to get them self-sufficient, but it's up to a lot of other systems to make really systemic change.
Commissioner, I certainly didn't think that you could do it single-handedly. We would be paying you a whole lot more money if you could. But I guess my question was, because it takes a lot of different agencies. I was wondering though, if you have those kinds of numbers, because I guess I would look at it as there's people that come in and out that need services, and they're there for a while and they go on successfully, whatever brought them there. Excuse me, they're able to become independent. There's certainly those people, and a lot of them. But the ones that are generational, I guess I would love to see us be able to break that at some point, and how do we do that? I know that's not just your agency. Somebody comes in and applies, they meet the criteria, they get the benefits. But in this whole thing, we really need to be thinking about breaking that. And not just because of money, has nothing, in my mind, doesn't have anything to do with money. Has to have to do that. That's not a quality life for people, to not be able to be independent and care for themselves and take pride and have a job and a home and have the American dream, and I don't think your department's totally responsible for that. I think we as a legislature has a great responsibility in that through the departments that we fund. But can you tell me how many are generational on our vast caseload? Is that a possibility?
I can't imagine that we could get that information. That would mean going back for decades possibly. And it doesn't mean that they were in Albany County necessarily. We would only have Albany County folks. So we'll put our heads together and see what we have available. It might be limited, what outcomes that we do have. I mean, as we know, for SNAP, our goal is to get food on the table. And that's our success, is we get out the benefits and people are purchasing food for themselves and their families. To me, that's our outcome.
And it's always been a helping hand, and that should be, and we want to lift people up out of that if we can. Thank you, Commissioner. I appreciate your comments.
Commissioner McClave, I just want to thank you so much for your report tonight and your patience in answering the questions. Those are the members who have additional questions. I just ask right now that you would put them into the email that has been provided. And we are going to, I just want you to know, Commissioner, that we appreciate the hard work that does go on in the Department of Social Services. And we do know how sometimes how hectic it can be. And so I just want to thank you right now, and I want to wish you good night and stay safe.
You too. Thank you very much.
You're very welcome. All right, next we have Children, Youth, and Families. Ms. Manning.
Good evening, Madam Chairwoman and committee members.
Okay, I'm just going to remind you of something because it's been a few minutes before since I first said this. Legislators have been provided with your written responses to our budget information request letter, and we thank you for your cooperation in providing them. However, in order to complete a more thorough examination of your budget, it may be necessary to forward you some additional questions after tonight's hearing. Now, if you would, please provide us with a 3-minute summary of your budget. Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you, Madam Chairwoman and committee members. We thank you for the opportunity to meet with you regarding our 2021 budget for the Department for Children, Youth, and Families. And here with me this evening is Nicole Ward, our Deputy Commissioner, and Beth O'Neill, our Director of Accounts. In preparing for this meeting, I was reflecting back on the past year and realized that we're living in a time like no other. With the COVID-19 pandemic, with the community violence, virtual learning for our students, childcare challenges, and loss of employment. All of these factors impact the level of anxiety, stress, and fear that not only our children are experiencing, but families and even our staff members. I'm very proud to say that the department throughout the pandemic has been continuing to work in the office and in the field, serving children and families. The DCYF staff are essential workers and have been on the front line since day one, serving the community through our child protective services, foster care services, mental health, and children with special health care needs. We continue to ensure that children are safe in our community and that families' needs are being met. This pandemic has changed our service delivery, such as through asking screening questions of our families, the use of PPE, and conducting assessments through virtual platforms or telehealth. The department, we all applaud our employees. They're dedicated staff members who come to work every day, committed to support and serve the children of Albany County. The department continues to be conscientious to reduce our expenditures. We continue to examine and project expendings to the best of our ability and to give you a responsible budget. But in spite of this, there are a lot of things that we have no control over, such as the increase of the cost of foster care placements through school districts, through the Committee on Special Education, transportation costs for our preschoolers, and placements by family court to the Office of Family Children Services through OCFS facilities, as well as non-secure and secure detention. So unfortunately, these costs are not predictable because we don't know how many children would be entering that. So the budget is based on our best projections. We're here to answer any of your questions regarding the 2021 budget. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. I'll start with some questions and then I'll open it up. The flexible The flexible fund family services revenue has doubled. Can you explain the reason for this increase in the budget?
We're just gonna take a look.
Okay, the revenue is based on, we had an increase in our foster care block grant. So that changes the amount of the triple FS money has to go in particular categories. So because it was increased, there's more of that money available to other programming, which is why it appears that there was an increase. But we actually, the triple FS for the department has stayed the same.
All right, thank you. Family assistance revenues is up $362,000 from zero in 2020.
I'm sorry, which one are you talking about?
6110, emergency aid to families.
Okay. Okay, again, that has to do with the triple FS money that is assigned. The revenue overall has stayed the same for that account. It's just where we have to take the revenue from. Some of it comes from the foster care block grant and some of it comes from the triple FS.
Okay, thank you. All right. Why is the division for youth revenue down $65,000?
Was youth revenue, was it?
Division for youth.
Oh, division for youth.
Vacancies due to that.
Okay, that for that line, it's we have it, the revenue should be the same as at 325,000 if you're talking about the 6119-03820 line.
Yes.
Madam Chairwoman, if you look at the 2020 for what was adopted last year, it is exactly the same. The line that's printed in the 2021 book is the adjusted.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Now fees for services line is down to 75,350 from 223,652 in 2020.
Yeah, that is due to the fact that during the course of the year, when we get our grants, a lot of the grant money does get added to that fees for service line. So our actual request is the same as it was for the 2020 budget.
All right, and printing and advertising has dropped $55,000.
That's the same reason. We spend a lot of our CAC and CFRT money into advertising. So once those grants, the letters are received and we add the money to the budget, those lines will go back up.
And those budgets are usually, October through September 31st. So it hits in between the cycle.
So I'm going to put a couple of questions together here now. And I just want to say this, given all of the recent violence in the community over the past year, the legislature is considering ways to increase programs that will help alleviate this alarming issue, and concern. I see here, I'd like you to speak on your staffing or your turnover situation, whether you're having trouble keeping people in a caseworker supervisor's lines, and if so, could you justify the early separations? And is the single point of entry coordinator that took the buyout going to be replaced? It seems that position plays a key role in the review of referrals to DCYF programs.
Okay, that was a lot of questions. So to start off with the first one, Yes, we're very concerned about the violence that has been occurring in the community and any of the juveniles that may be involved. We just heard this past week that the STSJP, which is the Supervision and Treatment of Juveniles program, that we actually will get funded in 2021. That program actually offers services through Youth Life for community reintegration. It provides services through, it's called FAS, it's Family Assessment Intervention, which is at the front door of family court to prevent a child from further penetrating into the juvenile justice system. In addition, we have Parent Partners, which is a new service that will be for juveniles that are getting into trouble in the community. And this is a family member that has that lived experience and really helping families guide through the system. So we're really focused more towards these credible messengers that can really provide that lived experience in the community and hopefully deter our children from these activities as well as going further down the family court system.
On that point right there. Now, did you say this is a new program or is one that's being reauthorized?
It was being funded through the STSJP from the Office of Children and Family Services. They were awarded this contract back last February. However, the Cayuga Center, who is offering to do the Parent Partner Services, has not been able to hire anyone due to the pandemic.
Okay.
So they are actively currently, trying to recruit parent partners in the community that can start with this program.
Is this
we need to do a reapplication and send it to OCFS for their approval before we receive the monies.
Is this a new program?
The Parent Partner is, the others are not. The STSJP has been in existence. In addition, so has the last 3 years, Youth Life was awarded the contract, and currently we just got the scores back and they have won the bid as well. So it's going through the RLA process.
So you said the Cayuga Center has had it?
Yes, since February, but with the pandemic, they have not been able to recruit or hire anyone for that position.
So they just had it since February. They didn't have it last year?
No, it was a new add-on that OCFS gave us enhanced funding.
And so how many families do they hope to, or kids do they hope to see in the program?
They really focus on 6 to 12 youth at one time, depending on what the needs are of that family. But the Parent Partner would assist in whatever the family needs to, again, support them and avoid further, it's really alternatives to detention to avoid that detention placement.
Alternative to detention. I guess I just want to say this, and then I'm going to just ask some more questions that really are relative to the budget. But this what bothers me about these programs is that do you ever get any recommendations from these people? As the community is on a downward spiral right now, and we commit millions of dollars to these type of programs. And as people ask us as legislators what we are doing as an answer to the violence, my opinion is we give millions of dollars that are supposed to attend to, whether it's detention, whether it's a mental health concerns, whether it's family services that need to be provided. And yet I have not heard any response from these people we give these millions of dollars to. And so I'm concerned with if the way in which they have done business in the past, are they going to change the way in their approach? And we would like to see some outcomes. What kind, do they have any success stories that they can tell? And more than one or two. Mm-hmm. Because right now, our people are hurting. And I'm going to stop right there because I know I have other members that have some questions in regard to this. So,
well said, Madam Chairwoman.
Yes. Okay. now also, is the single point of entry coordinator that took the buyout going to be replaced?
Down the road, it will be vacant for 1 year. However, those duties of that individual have been shared between two individuals. The director is taking a role in an interim period, but we agree that that is a position that we will fill next year when we are allowed to. And we'll be monitoring that closely. If we need to look at, another vacancy in our department, and if we need to work with civil service, HR, management and budget, and look at changing the duties of someone or altering them, and then getting that position refilled in that regard.
Okay, thank you. All right, Ms. Lakakis?
Hello. I have a couple of just some specific questions. Hi, Moira.
Hi.
It's A6 119 18 580 on page 91. I think it's per diem therapies, part-time. And I was just wondering, is that what it seems to be? And this is supplemental staff? And is there any way of, what can you tell me about that?
Is this doctor? Mostly the doctor. Okay. Is it the special needs student PT? Okay. So these are our two psychiatrists that are down at our children's mental health. They work on a part-time basis, serving children there. One is considered our primary doctor who signs off as the medical director. And then we have another part-time doctor to serve our children in mental health.
And did it go up because they're going to be working more, you think, this year, or they're just costing more?
Is working more. He works 1 day, full day a month, and otherwise they typically are, he's only works 3 hours, 3.5 hours. So he would be doing a 7-hour day.
Okay. And then on page 92, looking at A6 119 440 38R, it's mileage. I just wondered why it was going up so much, because I think you have cars, right? So I was just wondering.
You see that then?
That's the mileage related to the raise the age. Actually,
okay.
Yeah, we didn't use
Gotcha.
anything in 2019, and so we just repeated and we haven't used anything yet this year in there for when it's needed. So it's the same as last year.
Because we have caseworkers specifically for raise the age.
Thank you. I was racking my brain what that acronym could possibly be, and I did not come up with that one. And then the last question is about the legal service chargeback on that same page, the last line before the contractual expenses. And that also just went up a couple of $100,000, and I was wondering to what we attribute that.
It's the same as our request. That's the internal amount. That's our internal legal department. We they bill us for their services.
Okay.
And so that's the amount is the same as last year, but in 2019 we used a bit less than that, and I'm not sure. The legal department would know exactly what they didn't expect.
Great. And then of course I'm going to ask you, I want to beat Mr. Grimm and ask you about the overtime, and if you expect that is because of your staffing holes that you have, that your people are going to have to. Can you just talk a little bit more about that leap from $60,000?
Well, yes, overtime has been utilized because, again, we need to go out and ensure a child's safety. So if somebody's getting a report at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, they have to wrap up the report. And with having some vacancies currently, there's not as many staff. We do have some new staff as well. They can't go out alone at this point in time because they have not been fully trained on safety and risk. So therefore, they would need to go with more of a senior caseworker or their supervisor.
That's what I figured, but I want to be sure. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, secure detention funding.
One more down.
Okay, can you provide the committee with reimbursement rates for contractual budgets in your submitted information on attachment number 2?
Yes.
Yes, we will provide that to you.
Thank you, thank you. Mr. Clay? Bill, you muted yourself.
Yeah, I know. I had switched it off. Commissioner, can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can. Thank you.
I just want some clarification for myself. I might have missed, I'm sure I missed it. You don't have any vacancies, is that correct? Or you do have vacancies?
We do have vacancies. We currently have 32 vacancies, and we have some pending hires. We actually have 3 caseworkers that are pending approval as we speak.
So when the HR commissioner appeared before us the other evening, and she said there was no vacancies, then she was talking about her own department, not throughout the.
Yes, I would imagine that was the case, because yes, we do. And just to make note that even other counties throughout New York State, caseworkers, this is a rate of vacancies throughout New York State.
Okay, and I apologize if I missed this, but you are planning on filling the vacant positions, even though we're facing the pandemic situation in the county.
Yes, the ones that are on the vacancy list, we will. The ones that had the early separation, we will remain vacant for 1 year.
Okay, and what is the age limits that you deal with?
Birth to age 21.
Age 21. Okay. So some of these, some of the problems we're having out on the streets, these presumably could be people that they come under your programs or possibly could come under your programs?
Yes.
Because they all seem to be in the age of from 18 to 20.
Mm-hmm.
And it's becoming an emergency. Someone from the Albany City Council called for the mayor to declare a state of emergency, and so your department have nothing to do with providing services to any of those groups.
I'm sorry, Mr. Clay,
agency, any of those groups? Do we provide services to any of those groups?
To any of them, Commissioner, do your agency provide services to any of those groups that might be affected? I understand.
Oh, absolutely. The youth, again, they could be receiving services through, because we partner a great deal with probation. So we support a lot of the programs that probation officers provide, such as JCAB, the Parent Project. We have all of our preventive programs that, again, LaSalle School and St. Anne's have the early evening reporting center. In addition, Berkshire has a home run program for those youth that are really having difficulty attending school, and what are the other issues that may be impeding on their ability to get their education.
Okay. Commissioner, thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Clay.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Bergdorf.
Thank you, Wanda. I'm going to try to boil myself down to 3 questions. You've got 32 position vacancies, 11 eliminated positions, and potentially $6.6 million of state funding, which may be withheld. How has the COVID and economic downturn affected your caseloads in your core programs? That was sort of hard to determine from your narrative. Have you built into your 2021 budget any adjustments in programmatic assumptions?
Well, I think, at this point in time, with COVID and the impact of COVID, at first, things were very quiet with Child Protective Services and the caseworkers. A lot of CPS reports were not coming in that first initial maybe week wave. And the issues related to that is that schools were closed, pediatric offices were closed. No one was seeing those children to make those mandated reports. But as time progressed throughout the pandemic, we started to get more referrals, if you will, the SCR reports, because we were getting law enforcement or EMS, that things were getting to a critical nature. So the reports started coming in. And so, again, I just really want to applaud that our staff continues to go out there, meet with families, and take the safety precautions they are able to. With that being said, also our prevention contracts, we're in the process and hope to have it released in March of looking at our prevention programs. Now, the New York State Office of Children and Family has instituted Families First prevention legislation. That is looking at children not going into congregate care, but staying in the community with foster parents or kinship care. So for 2021, we have had a great deal of focus on looking at how do we expand our foster parent pool and how do we get more training available immediately for kinship, because kinship, meaning another family member taking in this child who's in foster care, would need to go through training and then approved by OCFS. So we've been working to get that in place, because if these children go into congregate care, it would be a higher cost to the county.
Just following up on that, with many parents working from home and supervising their children's virtual learning and just generally being there, have there been any quantifiable differences in caseload? Has it made it worse or made it better? Or made it better or made it worse?
There's more, definitely the caseworkers have a higher caseload, clearly, and there's a lot more what's occurring right now. A lot of the reports coming in are related to mental health issues, substance abuse, and domestic violence. So they're very critical and dangerous situations for our most vulnerable children.
I have one last question, and it's probably more for Sean Thalen or Dave Riley. I've heard two conflicting numbers tonight. You talked about, Moira, the people who took the buyout. You hope to, in 2022, at the end of 1 year, possibly reinstall those positions. But yet, when the buyout was announced, it was announced that people couldn't go back into service of Albany County for 3 years. So I'm a little confused. What is the period of time that the position in a buyout has to remain vacant? Although I do understand that it was pretty specific that people couldn't go back to work for Albany County for 3 years. Dave, Sean?
Yeah, I've got that, Mr. Bergdorf. Yes, they're two separate items that are getting confused here. You are right. The individual cannot come back to county service in any form, part-time, full-time, for 3 years. The line itself, looking at the other side, is defunded for 1 year. And then depending on the economic conditions as we formulate the 2022 budget, we will determine what happens with it at that point. If things are starting to turn the corner and we look like we could start absorbing some of the workers, and it was a position that was truly needed, and the loss was felt, then those may go back in. We have to see. That's a full year out. We have to see what happens between now and then.
So the long and the short of it is it's really a 1 year deferral of the position.
Correct.
And discretionary after that point.
Correct.
Well, thank you for clarifying that, because I had not heard that before tonight.
Okay, yeah, you know to reach out if you have any questions.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bergdorf. Mr. Grimm? I'm muted too. You're muted, Mark. We can't hear you.
Oh, so, thank you, Chair, very much. Yeah, yeah, it's a little disturbing to hear that because we were told we're going to save 5 million next year on these buyouts, but we spent $1 million this year. And if they're just hiring somebody else, then we're not really saving as much as we might have thought. I do want to go to page 91. My distinguished colleague, Lynn Lakakis, she mentioned the 2 psychiatrists, these 2 part-timers for $220,000. What is the hourly rate that they're paid?
I would need to get that for you.
Are they both paid the same or is it different or?
No,
One's 175.
I think it's 175 and 200. My guess, and again, it's pretty close to this, but I would want to double check the numbers. One psychiatrist is getting $175 an hour and the other one is getting $200 an hour.
Is that something that goes to bid or how does that hire happen?
That, I don't recall how that bid came about.
All right, if you could get back to us on the details of that, that would be very helpful. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Grimm. Thank you very much. Are there, Mr. O'Brien? You're muted.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just to follow up on Mr. Grimm's question about vacancies, are they going to be hired back at the entry level?
Oh, absolutely. And I think this is an opportunity for us to look at the department and see where, that's why I was talking about the titles. Are these the right titles or do we need to add additional things that they can do in that, for example, the single point of entry? Are there other things than just that single point of entry that they could do within the context of looking for the birth to 5?
What, I guess this is for management and budget question. What if you can't find a qualified individual? Your hands are sort of tied on filling that position for 3 years, hiring anyone back.
Well, the vast majority of people that took the program are retiring.
Correct.
So we were going to lose them anyway.
Okay. I'm done. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. O'Brien. Ms. McLaughlin?
Yeah, I'd just like some clarification as it relates to the positions that are being, that people that took the buyout. I'm hearing, and that could be my mistake, I'm hearing 2 different things. I thought when the people took the positions, took the buyout, there's a placeholder of $1 to keep the positions in the budget, but no money allocated for them for 2021. 2022, the departments would be able to hire someone in those positions. Is that correct?
We have not fully committed to saying that they can hire a certain percentage or all. We need to see what 2021 shapes up to be and how 2022 is looking before we'll make those kinds of promises.
So at this point in time,
we're also going to need to see how the departments function with the lower workforce. If they need positions added, we will come back to you and make sure we have the staffing to get the programs done.
And should that happen, some people that left, that are retired or however chose to leave, they may have been at a higher pay rate, but you're going to come back at a different rate. So savings will still be achieved. It just won't be at the level that was initially anticipated.
Correct.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify that. Thank you so much. And that's throughout all departments, not just yours.
But just for clarification, we're not anticipating coming back for these positions. But if there are very bad circumstances or someone's in a bad hole, we're not going to stop providing services, as we said earlier in the evening.
Okay, but I also, while I'm still here, I just wanted to reiterate something that the chair said about the impact of the gun violence that's taking place in the community and the response of the Department of Social Services in dealing with those issues. So I too would like to see more tangible response coming out of this department, because I do believe that there are some negative impacts that can only get worse if we don't address them. And I think that we have to be proactive in providing a response to the community. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. McLaughlin. I have, unless someone else has any more questions, I have a final question here. Ms. Manning?
Yes.
Okay. Can you tell us what the reimbursement rate for overtime expenditures are?
No, it's not. If we're getting, if we don't think about the withhold, we get 92% reimbursed.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, with that said, if there aren't any other questions, before I bid you good night, I just want to thank you for your presentation. And I'm hoping that there are some things that we can look at to address the issues that are going on. I do know you, your people, the caseworkers, have a very difficult job in front of them, but the county has been quite generous in the dollars that we have expended. I don't know if we need, if it's enough, or if we need different types of programming to ensure we get a better success rate out of all of the dollars that we are putting forth. But I just want to thank you for your service. And the caseworkers and all the hard work that they do, especially now at the time of the pandemic. So I want to bid you good night and stay safe.
Thank you.
All right, again, now, I just want to say I think we had a total of 26 members tonight, and I think that's an excellent number. I just want to thank all of the members that did come on tonight. And tomorrow night, we have, tomorrow night is health, mental health, aging, and the nursing home. And after tomorrow, we'll convene again on Monday. So I hope to see all of you here. And I would like to, right now have a motion to adjourn.
Motion, Madam Chairwoman.
Thank you, Mr. Peter.
Motion, second.
Second, thank you.
Third.
Fourth.
All right.
Excellent job, Miss Chairman. Excellent job
Good
tonight.
job, Madam
Great job,
Chairwoman.
All
Once
right, see you
again,
tomorrow.
great job. Led very well.
Thank you so much. Thank you. We'll see you tomorrow. Keep up the good work and